Welcome to the Weird Warriors podcast. I'm Max.
I'm Rich.
On this podcast, we will be discussing the Weird War Tales comic book published by DC Comics from 1971 to 1983. On this episode, we'll be looking at Weird War Tales number 6. But first, we have a bit of retroactive history to discuss. And I'll take the first one. We looked into this ad last time around for the Razzie Racers cars. They're like these little balloon-powered toy cars, and I was desperate to find something on these toys online, YouTube, anything. And I found no luck, I was desperate, looking around, and I needed to know, do these things make little fart noises as they skitter across the floor? These are important issues to research. So I found one loose car for sale, loose Razzie Racer on eBay for $350, and one YouTube video that pretty much just talked about how hard it is to find anything out about these things on the internet. So Razzie Racers, if you've got them, apparently you can charge quite a bit on eBay, and maybe no one will buy it. But they're just as mysterious as I thought. Like I said, the one video I found was someone else throwing their hands up saying, why are these so darn mysterious? So there's that bit. And Rich has one other item of retroactive history to discuss as well.
Yeah, well, we were talking about the Sam Glanzman battle diorama last time. And my whole take of it at the time was, I really don't want to cut these things out of a perfectly good comic book just to see what this thing's going to look like. But hey, you know what? This is the 21st century. There's this wonderful thing called scanners. So that's what I did. I scanned the battle diorama. I cut it out, put construction paper on the backside, eliminated all the dotted lines and assembled it. The cutout panel is in the front, and the background panel curves around in a semicircle behind it. And you know what? It actually looks better than I thought it would. It's a pretty sharp look. I think I'm going to actually be making all these things as we go throughout the Weird War titles, and these things show up in issues. But I took some pictures of it, and those will be on the Facebook page if you want to see what they look like. So
yeah, at the time of this recording, we'll be getting a Facebook page ready called the Weird Warriors Podcast on Facebook, and there'll be a Twitter account for the show and everything. All things in their time. Yeah, we can't have Rich making these dioramas and not showing them off to people. I mean, it has to happen. We'll have tons of stuff like that, covers and everything. But I saw a picture of this, and it does look pretty cool. I got to say, we kind of bagged on the concept when we covered the issue, but it was Glanzman who drew it, right? Yeah, and we should have known. He was not going to he was not going to work on a project for something that was going to look stupid. That's our retroactive history. And Rich, I'm going to let you take the cover detail for this one.
Okay. Well, it's Kubert, of course, because who else does the covers of the DC War books? It's dated from August of 1972. Released July-August 1972, and there's no more of that spine-tingling issue hoo-ha, that they had on the top of the first 5 issues. But DC is now first in comics, best in comics. The comic is cheaper, now only 20 cents, but it's also thinner. There's a half-page blurb inside talking about the process of increasing the price from 15 cents to 25 cents, but giving the reader 16 pages of reprint material to make up for it. Now, most of the reprint material is going to be going away, and they cut the price a nickel. Marketing! The helmeted skull that adorns the APO Weird War letter page appears on the cover for the first time, right next to the title. So they got a mascot or an additional logo piece now. The cover itself, how about that? The cover itself has a group of GIs in the background extracting themselves from some rubble. One's yelling, "The bombing is over, anybody hurt?" And the GI is sitting in the crater in the foreground replies, "Everything okay here?" But through tears in his uniform and facial skin, you see he's actually a robot. One of his metal hands has even been blown off and is barely attached by dangling wires. So this is, lunging right into the sci-fi aspect of it. If you're a robot guy, I have a feeling this is going to be your issue.
I was kind of psyched to see the cover of this one because I remember a Weird War from much further down the tracks where it's just crazy stuff in every single story, and seeing an honest to goodness robot soldier on the cover, I'm like, okay, we're digging in. I love it. I'm ready.
This is the original GI robot.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, because I definitely remember Jake, the GI robot from my period, my era of Weird War, and I was like, this has.
Fortunately, those comics are about 100 issues down the pike. It's going to be a little while.
Yeah, we'll get there by the time we're both like in retirement homes or something like that. Yeah. Exactly.
But, as far as commendations are concerned, I mean, by showing metal underneath the GI's face, like it's not Terminator-esque almost. It's like Kubert's ensuring that the viewer knows that the GI isn't a human with artificial arms and legs. So it's a pretty nice touch, actually.
Yeah, that right there, you're absolutely right. That's the genius of Kubert, is like storytelling is part of the drawing. Like you could have just thought, okay, this guy's a cyborg. He's got artificial limbs, but nope, the skin is covering a partial metal skull. So, he gets that done without having to belabor it. It's just sitting there for you to see. Now, my favorite part of the cover that I want to call out deals with that face. It's the smirk on the wounded GI robot's face. Like he's sitting there kind of just good-naturedly saying, everything okay here? And he's just sort of smirking like a hook. And I'm thinking, from the viewpoint of soldiers that look down on him and see him eventually, and he's just sitting there smiling all disarmingly goofy, that's going to look pretty disturbing real quickly. Like you got half a fleshy face smiling up at you like, and the rest is like this robotic metal skull, So I like that touch myself. It kind of got across like the creepiness that I expect out of Weird War. Again, this was like, I felt like I was coming home a bit to the Weird War comics I remembered. So I like that touch a lot.
It's actually starting to get a little bit weird.
Yeah.
How about that?
And speaking of robots, we're gonna dive into the first story, or not the first story, the framing sequence in this issue. I'll kick it off. It is called Robots, and it's by Bob Haney and Alex Toth, the team from last time, from the last framing sequence. So Kubert keeps getting a break from the framing sequences for an issue here. And as far as synopsis goes, it goes a little something like this. 2 GIs are retreating through a blasted village at night as artillery shells start raining down on them. They dive into a hole and find a 3rd GI already there. As shells hammer the remains of the village, one of the first 2 GIs laments that he sometimes wishes he wasn't made of flesh and blood so he couldn't get hurt. The other GI comments that he'd heard a crazy rumor that the enemy was using robot soldiers on the right flank. How would we stand up to them? They never get tired, hungry, or scared. The 3rd GI lights a cigarette, dismisses it. Besides, if the enemy has robots, we probably have them too. But they won't let the thought go. They have no heart, no feeling. How could you have a robot for a buddy? Unable to raise anyone on the radio, the soldiers decide to stay where they are until some enemy robots kick them out. The 3rd GI simply continues to say that robots can be beat like anything else with enough TNT. I've even heard a few stories. Listen. And that listen is like becoming such a tagline for these framing sequences. Like, come over here and listen to my story. So that's the synopsis. I don't think we have a killjoy here, so I'll let Rich launch into some commendations for this one.
Yeah, the thing that came across me on this story is it's the last panel in the framing sequence when the 3rd GI is just like, I've even heard a few stories. Listen, well, he's starting up with the storytelling as German soldiers are emerging from the flaming ruins of the village and are advancing up towards them. I'm sorry, that's a hell of a time to start spinning yarns. I think you would have more important things to be concerned about at that particular moment.
Yeah, but this guy the whole time, he's been like the cool, calm guy who's just sort of lighting up a cigarette and saying, don't worry about them robots. You just need to hit them hard enough and they'll fall down. He's like, that sort of goes in with his character. Like he's not fazed by any of this. And for me, of course, as far as commendations, this is Alex Toth art. Every panel of it is incredible. But we went on and on about that last time. So we're both drilling down a little more specific for this one. And for mine, it's the 2nd page, the 3rd panel. Again, the sound effect work here is awesome. There's this sound effect that visibly shatters as it impacts the ground and thereby creates the big blam sound effect that's in a ring in the air above it. So you have one sound effect creating the other. It's just pure masterful craftsmanship in comics. I love that stuff. That's what really got me. But yeah, the entire thing is it's Alex Toth, people. It's amazing to look at. And Haney actually does a great job with the dialogue and the different personalities of the soldiers. It's a great little short framing sequence. I'm in. I'm ready for robots. So what do we got?
Okay, well, the first story, it appears to be an original because I can't find any references to it anywhere. It's called Pawns. It's written by Marvin Wolfman and art by Frank Thorne. And the synopsis is two bored human generals are playing chess under large TV screens of robot warfare. Robot pawns battle while humans sit back unbothered. For 200 years. Robots were built to be destroyed, to die in the place of humans. One of the generals boards an observation skimmer to inspect the battlefield. His robot army is decimating the enemy robot army, which provides cover fire as their leader repairs itself. And the general is amazed at the display of emotion they appear to have for each other. The skimmer is suddenly shot down, and the general bails out in a jetpack. He wakes up a captive to the robots, who aren't very accommodating to his demands. An incoming missile takes out half the robots, which causes the robot NCO to snap. It attacks the general, blaming him for the war and demanding to know why humans are playing this destructive game. General has no answers. The fighting has gone on so long, they don't know how to live any other way. The robots turn the tables, and the story ends with robot generals playing chess under large TV screens of human warfare. They wonder how long the war will last now that people are fighting and dying. Check and mate.
Love it.
So I nitpick, the whole Killjoy was here moment. I always nitpick the stories that start off in the framing sequence that take place in the future. It's just like, come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, this one I could give you because he could have heard it as a sci-fi story. Someone told him they did have science fiction back then, but that's still me stretching as hard as I can to make that gap work. But
This one at least you could play the sci-fi game. I mean, some of the ones we've talked about in the past, where it's like a story that takes place in it specifically takes place in the Korean War, something that's like 7 years down the pike.
Yeah, it's like real future events as opposed to made up.
Down that road for that particular one, but the commendations. It's robot talking 101. The square word balloons of the talking robots with the hyphens between each word. You could practically hear it. Such a 70s representation of robots.
Yeah, that very computerized, Tweaky from Buck Rogers almost, even though I guess he was a little more human sounding. But yeah, again, just using the medium of comics to get across an idea, to get across the sound of an idea like that you're dead on with that. That's the kind of stuff I love to see. And for me, I love seeing Frank Thorne's art again. He was in a previous issue we covered. And once again, I was only, before we started really digging into these issues, familiar with his stuff from like Red Sonja and Sword and Sorcery stuff. So there's that. But what really got me was the nature of the ending of this story. It doesn't seem as simple when I read it a few times as now the robots fight their own war using humans as pawns. It's more like, for me, the robots decided to force the humans to kill each other while they chill out, watch the fleshlings die, and play chess. It's that reading of the ending that makes me like the robots even more. It's like they obviously don't care about this war, and they're like, see how you guys like fighting for a while, And then that comment on how long will the war last now that humans are fighting it is they know that these fragile creatures are going to kill each other, and they're just hanging out. So I like that. I like seeing Marv Wolfman here. Some very early work by him because, of course, I was familiar with him from writing The Avengers with George Perez, and then they jumped over to save DC Comics with the new Teen Titans in 1980. So seeing early Marv Wolfman work like this and enjoying it so much was also really cool for me. I mean, that's a lot of commendations, but what can I say? Like the first big sci-fi story in Weird War, I was all geared up for every panel of this. It looks great, reads great. It's a lot of fun. So that's me on that. The second story in the issue is called Goliath of the Western Front. It's by Bob Haney with art by Ross Andru and Mike Esposito, that team. And it's a reprinted cover story of Star Spangled War Stories 93 from October 1960. And this is a longer story. The synopsis of this one is as follows. Davy is new to King Company and keeps getting ragged on about his height. Davy's sergeant weighs in and tells the unit about the ancient tale of David and Goliath. And we all know it. A good little man can take a big man if he uses his head and finds the big guy's weak spot. He still gets picked on and is sent out on point, on patrol, fuming. At the same time, the Germans launch Operation Goliath.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, coincidentally, to go after poor Davy. So they've staged tanks and shock troops to exploit a breakthrough by their superweapon. A towering robot dressed as a German soldier with glowing red eyes under its helmet. Now, this thing is huge. It's, like 100 feet tall at least? And it's a German soldier in a giant robot form, uniform and all. So Hitler is even following this attack at his headquarters. Davy obviously doesn't believe his eyes when he sees this monster coming towards him and runs back to his unit. A U.S. fighter plane attacks and is swatted out of the sky with the robot's rifle butt. It's also carrying a gigantic rifle. This thing is, it's just a giant robot soldier, for real. It's wearing boots. Artillery is summoned, and it dodges the shells. A sensor in the behemoth's shoes sets off anti-tank mines before it steps on them. Davy takes a ride on the blades of a Dutch windmill with the sergeant to fire a bazooka round at point-blank range into the robot's face. No go. It wrecks the windmill and kills the sergeant. King Company sweeps across a canal, hoping underwater traps will be the Goliath's downfall. Wrong again. It seems like the only GI the robot is chasing is little Davy, who twists his ankle in pure horror movie fashion and goes down. Desperately, Davy opens fire with his Tommy gun, yelling, "Where's your weak spot, Mr. Big Shot?" His rounds rake across the sole of the uplifted giant's foot, finding that weak spot and breaking a tiny electronic tube, which shuts the Goliath down and sends it crashing to the ground. Luckily, not right on top of Davy. The German attack is called off. Hitler has a fit, and Davy is one of the guys as King Company counterattacks. So there we go. That's Davy and Operation Goliath. You you don't have a killjoy, but I kind of do for this one. I'm just saying, holy Silver Age supervillain plot. Okay, so you know how this thing has a weak point in its foot? Why? Okay, fine. But now you know that the enemy has found out about it and you cancel the whole project? I mean, yeah, the robot looks expensive and impossible using 1940s tech, but come on, Hitler, don't be such a quitter. Like, the whole plan of making one robot with how expensive that must have been and sending it out and then having it have a weakness in its foot where one bullet can shatter one tube and the whole thing shuts down. That's Death Star level fragile, you know. But, you know, still fun story. I enjoyed the heck out of it, but I was like, man, I felt like I was reading a Silver Age superhero comic. So now we can move on to stuff we liked more about the story. I'll let you take that one.
I'm going for commendations. I'm actually going to go a route that I've never gone before, and I'm going to take a swipe at the original. The cover of Star Spangled War Stories '93 lies to you. It's implying that the Goliath is human. It's trying to trap two GIs with its helmet, complete with swastika on it, and wearing a swastika signet ring, just in case you're confused who the bad guy was. So you get the thing. It's like, oh wow, it's a giant. And you open it up, it's a robot. I'm like, what? You're lying to me. Why are you lying to me? Don't lie to me.
Well, see, in the older book, they didn't want to hit you over the head with too much weirdness and craziness, you know, so just a giant Nazi soldier. They've done that before. And I'm surprised they held back and didn't have, like, him have a little swastika manicure going on. You know,
actually, I'm flipping through the comic right now, and full disclosure, it looks like they actually chopped out a page of the story, because in the original, a tank engages the German robot, and he steps on it.
Oh, well, there goes your weakness in the bottom of the foot.
And then it takes his helmet, and he drops the helmet on on King Company, trying to crush him or scoop him up or capture him or whatever else like that. So, so for whatever reason, they apparently decided they had to cut out one page of the story, and it's funny. And again, in the original, the helmet is still laying on the ground when the U.S. fighter plane attacks it, but in the Weird War Tale one, they've edited out the helmet on the ground, and someone just redrew it on the robot's head.
Oh, they actually paid attention to that much continuity and redrew the helmet. That's cool.
Yeah, oh, and every scene where the helmet is supposed to be on the ground, someone redrew it back where it was supposed to be.
Oh, that's kind of
Okay.
cool, actually. Like, because I
Point
would have thought they would just chop that page for space concerns or something and just move on and not explain it. But that's neat that they put in the effort.
full disclosure, I missed that somehow when I was reading the original to compare it to this. Oh well.
Hey, that's why you got the books out on the table during the show. So for me, I wondered something for my commendation. Is this the first appearance of Hitler in Weird War Tales?
I believe so. Don't recall ever seen him in any other book.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was a huge moment. Like, I don't think we actually have seen Hitler yet. And there he is, and he's flipping out, losing his mind. So that was cool. And also the Sarge telling the story of David and Goliath while using military comparisons for elements of the story, like his spear was as big as a stoka. You know, that reminded me of the Family Guy episode with the leaf peeping cab driver from New York City up in Quahog. Like, you know, those leaves, they are as orange as my cab. You know, like, so it was just funny to me to see he had to use military comparisons for everything in the story of David and Goliath. It was just kind of
Shield
funny.
was as big as a Tiger tank.
Yes. Yeah. Everything went back to their experience in the war. So yeah, I like this one. It was a little repetitive. I can see why cutting a page wouldn't make much of a difference because it was just, get off my back, you giant robot. And Davey throwing himself at it and failing. And they were like, you know what? One page, we can lose it. But still, it was cool to see, you know, a bunch of American soldiers fighting a giant German robot complete with uniform and rifle in an issue of Weird War Tales. And the fact that it was a 1960 reprint too took me by surprise. So that was fun. I dug it. And this issue being, as Rich mentioned at the top, a bit thinner than the previous 52 big pages we're used to, we're already to the end of the framing sequence. So Rich, tell them how that goes.
Well, this one, they called this one Robot Fighting Men. It's, you know, by Haney and Toth again. And the storyteller GI wraps his stories with saying robots have weaknesses just like human GIs. And the one GI that was scared of him originally feels better. But he still wouldn't want to fight next to one, preferring flesh and blood buddies in combat. At that moment, a potato masher flies into their hole, and Storyteller throws himself on top of it, taking the full brunt of the blast. The other two roll him over to get his dog tags to give to Graves' registration and discover he was a robot.
I love it. It reminds me of, you know, now we're getting into, like, you know, from what I grew up with, like Creepy and Eerie magazine, and you know, which was largely based on the old EC horror mags, where there was always the twist ending at the end where, and she was secretly a vampire, or he was the werewolf, or whatever, you know. And that just, to me, I was back in pretty familiar territory and feeling like, the book's heading in my direction now. That was cool. It's only a 2-page thing, but again, Haney and Toth. Yeah, Haney and Toth, man, just delivered. I loved it. So what do we got for commendations on this one? Because you can't killjoy this. There's robots. They're fine.
Well, that's the thing about sci-fi. I mean, everything, you know, you could stretch a lot of stuff. You're the one that found, you know, the killjoy on this one. Just like in the dinosaur episode, you're like, wrong.
Yeah, because I'm that kind of picky nerd, so I'll be covering those angles.
But yeah, in this one, I think you know, they were putting the word balloons on the wrong people at the end of the story, because Toth put the corporal stripes on the wrong helmet because the GI that was all chill about flipping out over the dead robot is calling him a kid, you know. So it's just wasn't paying attention to who he was painting the corporal stripes on. But
that's a little bit killjoy territory.
Yeah.
We can do killjoy on the actual craftsmanship of the comic, you know. That's fine. That counts. But again, it's Toth, that panel where they find out that, you know, their buddy is a robot, just the wreckage and the flames around it. It's just it all looks great. It's 2 pages, but every panel is cool. My favorite part of it, though, was when that potato masher grenade lands in their trench. The sound effect is just plop. No exclamation point, no nothing. I know that's how it would probably sound, but it just seems like such a, like, hey, look over here, guys, you're gonna die. Like, plop, you know. And it's just with all these other sound effects in just this framing sequence alone and throughout this issue that are so huge and bombastic, it's like impending death makes the sound of plop. Love it. So there we go. And, now that we're done with the stories, Rich can take us into what's becoming one of our favorite parts of these issues, the APO Weird War Tales letters page.
Yep. The last letter is from he's one of these guys like I've never written in before. Yeah, he's like essentially you messed up. The one story with the B-17. Learn your planes. You called a Messerschmitt 109 a Focke-Wulf 190. It says, come on, man. And it was like, aha, here we go. It's a fellow KJWH nitpicker bitching about misidentifying aircraft in a B-17 story. Joe responds with, hey, if that's the only fault you found, I don't feel too bad.
Yeah, I was wondering when we would run into a fellow Killjoy person for you to buddy around with 50 years in the past, and we didn't have to wait long. It was beautiful. Like, he was so anal retentive. He says, I enclose a chart. So he sent like a chart to help them keep their stuff correct. Like, there's no way. I'm reading this and I'm thinking, this is actually you, Rich. Like, the next time you fire up the time machine, you could take me along. I got some ideas. But it was just beautiful. I love that. I can't even pick a different letter as my highlight, because that one was what I'd been waiting for all this time. And the dude enclosed a chart. Like, I am sure that they kept that for all of 10 seconds.
Thanks, jerk, crumble, toss.
Yeah. So it's a great letters page, but that one letter easily wins it for me. And that'll move us along to our highlighted ads in this issue. And once again, lead them off.
Okay. Well, there's that one full page in the comic book that's got all the, the gag gifts, the weighted wristlets and the silent dog whistles and the phony cast and the x-ray specs and the magic cards. You've seen all this crap in these old comic books. And the one that leapt out at me is the Raquel Welch pillow. Only $198. And this is, what man wouldn't enjoy spending a night with Raquel Welch? Well, we can't deliver her, but we can deliver the next best thing, a 12 by 24-inch inflatable pillow of Raquel made of rugged vinyl to serve as your headrest. Keep her for yourself or show her to your friends. Livens up the party when everyone sees and feels this great gag item. And yeah, okay, this is a gag gift, but I feel like there are watch lists for this kind of thing.
Yeah, the next best thing to Raquel Welch, right? And in the early 70s, the next best thing to Raquel Welch, when I'm thinking of that, I think rugged vinyl. That's what I think. That'll do in a pinch. Speaking of pinch, but yeah, just creepy, just creepy. I mean, that presages, I think, the anime character body pillows that you hear about on the otaku scene in Japan. It's like, yeah, don't wag your finger too hard at Japan, because the Raquel Welch pillow over here for $1.98. Don't be too hasty to judge. So, I mean, that's hard to beat. So I didn't even try to beat that ad, but I mean, maybe. But once again, I'm going into a house ad solicitation for another comic book, as I know I tend to do, but just listen to this one. This is for an issue of Lois Lane, Superman's girlfriend. And the ad copy is as follows. Lois Lane runs into another division of the 100, the gang that killed her sister, in her July issue, number 124. She becomes queen of the Hunters Division, while Superman is nothing but a subjugated beast. Meanwhile, Rose Forrest goes job hunting in the latest Rose and Thorne tale, leading to a lot of Thorne action in an automobile factory. It's titled Murder by Motion. This ish on sale, May 23rd. Like, Lois Lane is fighting a gang that killed her sister, and she becomes a queen of some organization, while Superman is a subjugated beast. Like, I gotta tell you, I have read a bunch of these old Lois Lane books over the last 20 years or so, because I found out, just on the internet, how wild that title really was. And yeah, it's crazy. People need to read more of these issues, because that actually sounds like one of the milder issues of the book. So that just jumped out at me. Like, yeah, that sounds like an issue of Lois Lane, all right. So
definitely forget how crazy a lot of the DC war books were back then. Jimmy Olsen gets turned into like some sort of like mush monster, and well, come on, JLA is fighting a giant starfish, and
Yeah, I mean, there's that, and Jimmy Olsen around this time, man. This is when, don't get me going. This is when Jack Kirby took over the Jimmy Olsen book and started rolling out his fourth world through the Jimmy Olsen title. That's like Darkseid's first appearance is in an issue of Jimmy Olsen. The Superman titles in particular had all kinds of crazy stuff going on in them. But really, just go on to Mike's Amazing World or wherever site you want to use to read plot summaries of old comics and read 4 or 5 synopsis of Lois Lane from around this time, and you'll be going online to find copies of these things to read in a heartbeat. They're insane. So that's my ad that I'm ranting and raving about. It's no Raquel Welch pillow, I'll grant you, but there's that. So that's our issue. That's Weird War Tales number 6. I mean, we have
no Kubert except the cover, no Heath, no Glansman. It's like, God, man.
Yeah, it should have been a disaster when you think about that, because those are some of our favorite elements of the previous 5 issues, and then none of them are here. But for me, I was like, hey, no 1950s reprints either, because yeah, they're charming, but I'd be glad to leave them in the rear view from here on out. Yeah, well, but you got bad news for me on that, right?
Yep. I've already looked ahead to issue 7, which is actually the last of the reprint issues. Issue 8 will be the first full, all original material book. And all of the stories that are reprinted in Weird War number 7, I think, are from the 50s. So yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, so on their way out of reprint material, they just triple barrel me right in the face. I can appreciate that. I can get behind that. And just like I said, I've liked the 50s reprint stories for the most part. Probably like Face of a Fighter and stuff like that I could have done without. But I guess I was just with the robot stuff and things going in that direction. I'm getting hungry for my version of Weird War Tales. But we'll see. You've keyed me into the creative lineup for the next issue, and I'll probably eat my words when I actually get down and reread it and check it out. So, yeah, I mean, like I kid the 1950s reprints, but just spoiler alert, it sounds like a really cool issue next time around. So until we get to that issue, that was Weird War Tales number 6. I'm Max. He's Rich. This is the Weird Warriors podcast, and until next time, make war
no more.